Other publications, correct? Eyes. You had to be, right, in order to do your job. Eyes. And you had to be on top of what was in the public domain at the time, correct? Eyes. You had to keep track of current events, right? Yes, so, you knew, did you not, that in May 2015, The Guardian published an article regarding several malpractice suits against Dr. Carson, correct? That's correct. And so, in May 2015, long before any of the articles on this page, The Guardian had covered this issue, right? Eyes. And, in fact, The Guardian article referenced 7 malpractice claims against Dr. Carson, right? Eyes. And the article referenced on the top of the screen, the child there, her name is Carly Bailey, right? I don't remember her name. Mr. Bernick, if we could, for Pecker, the parties in the court, bring up what's been marked for identification as Defense Exhibit A133. Whereupon, the exhibit is shown on the witness and the party screens. If you could turn to page 3, please. And I want to see, Mr. Pecker, if this refreshes your recollection about the name of the child. Whereupon, the witness reviews the exhibit on his screen. Yes, it does. What was her name? Carly Bailey. We can take that down. Thank you. If we could bring back up People's 153A. That can be for everyone, please. That photograph on the top of a child is actually recycled from the Guardian article, correct? Eyes. And so, there are 4 articles on this page that relate to these medical malpractice claims, correct? Yes, and all of them contain information that was recycled from a publication months earlier in the Guardian, right? That's correct. And do you recall that in 2016, the Guardian website had about 40 million unique users in the United States? I don't recall that. Mr. Bernick, can we please bring up a document marked for identification? This is just for the court, the parties, and Mr. Pecker. It's been marked for identification as A138. Whereupon, an exhibit is shown on the witness screen and the party screens, and the witness reviews the exhibit on his screen. I don't see where it says 40 million. Can we turn to the next page, please? Whereupon, the witness reviews the exhibit on his screen. Yeah. 40 million unique users. Stanglass objection. Move to strike his answer in terms of the base of his knowledge. The court sustained. A website? Stanglass, the court, we can take that down, Mr. Bernick. Did that document refresh your recollection that, in 2016, the Guardian had about 40 million unique users on its objection? Sustained. The court, no. Don't answer the question. The witness, okay. If we could bring up People's 153A, please. This is for everyone, please. You see the 4th headline on this page? Eyes. There's a reference to military service? Yes, it's hard for me to see from here, but I think it's dated November 11th, 2015? November 11th. And do you recall, this is also a situation where the National Enquirer posted information that was already in the public domain? I don't recall this exact article. I don't recall exactly where the information was derived from this article. Do you recall, 5 days earlier, Politico ran a headline, exclusive, Carson claimed West Point scholarship but never applied? I don't recall. If you could please bring up for the parties, the witness, and the court the document marked A134. Whereupon, the exhibit is on the witness and the party screens. Just take a look at that. Can I have one moment, please? The court, sure. Have you had a chance to look at that? Yes, we can take that down, please. Screen, does that refresh your recollection that about 5 days before the National Enquirer article, Politico ran an article with the title, exclusive, Carson claimed West Point scholarship but never applied? Eyes. Mr. Bernick, if we could take a look for everyone at People's 153C. And these are articles that you were shown by the government during your direct examination relating to Marco Rubio, correct? Eyes. And these articles are also based on information that was not exclusive to the National Enquirer, correct? Eyes. The top article actually refers to a book that had been published about Mr. Rubio, correct? I don't recall the book. Mr. Bernick, if you could please bring up for the court, Mr. Pecker, and the parties, a document marked for identification as Defense Exhibit A141. Whereupon, a document is shown on the party screens. Do you have that on your screen? No. I can hand a copy up. Okay. If I could hand a copy up to the court as well, the court, thank you. Have you had a chance to look at that? Yes, that a copy of the National Enquirer article where we saw the headline on the screen, right? Yes. That's correct. Having reviewed that, does that refresh your recollection that what was really going on in the article was you were reviewing a book that had been published, right? Correct. So, it wasn't new information published, correct? That's correct. Substantially, everything in the exhibits you were shown in 153A, 153B, and 153C, what was going on was the National Enquirer was recycling information from other publications because it was cost-effective and made business sense. The court overruled. You can answer. Objection. Yes, and you talked about the National Enquirer relying on sources, right? Eyes. There was source network of sorts, right? That's correct. And one of the things that can be valuable to somebody in this industry is cultivating a network of sources, right? Eyes. So the people that work for you can draw on those to get sensitive details, right? Eyes. Articles we just looked at, right? But that's not what was happening with respect to the that's correct. That was a different part of the business, right? Yes. Where you were taking information that was public and posting it on the website. Eyes. And you testified on Tuesday that it was your objective to keep the August 2015 meeting confidential, correct? Yes. Right? And I think you said, highly, highly confidential, that's correct. And you wanted to keep the meeting as quiet as possible. I think you used those words, too. I did. But it actually became public prior to the election that you were doing those things for President Trump, correct? Yes. People picked up on it, right? Yes, nothing was hidden, correct? Mr. Steinglass objection. The court sustained. Q. But you testified, I think, yesterday about a Wall Street Journal article relating to Karen McDougal. Do you remember that? Eyes. That was People's Exhibit 180, right? That's correct. That article came out before the election, you said, right? Eyes. And Martha Bove, this is in evidence. Can we bring that up, People's 180, please? Mr. Bove, can you zoom in on the top half, please? Q. You see it, above the headline, it says, Election 2016, right? Eyes. So, this is Wall Street Journal coverage prior to the 2016 election, correct? That is correct. Mr. Bove, if we can go to page 2 of the exhibit, please, and zoom in on the second to last paragraph. Do you see where it says, since last year, Enquirer has supported Mr. Trump's presidential bid, endorsing him and publishing negative articles about some of his opponents? Yes, I see that. So, this was out there prior to the election, correct? Eyes. Mr. Bove, you can take that down. Thank you. Q. I want to stick with the August 2015 meeting. Okay? Yes, at that meeting, the concept of catch and kill was not discussed, correct? That's correct. And there was no discussion of a financial dimension to any agreement at that meeting, correct? Yes. That's correct. And you testified on Tuesday about a source agreement with somebody named Dino Sajidin. Do you remember that? Yes, I do. You said you learned of Mr. Sajidin's false story in about October of 2015? That's correct. You testified on Tuesday that you never discussed this story directly with President Trump, correct? That is correct. And President Trump never paid you any money in connection with that Sajidin story, right? And Cohen didn't pay you any money either. Did he? No, he did not. No. You testified Tuesday there was a source agreement between AMI and Mr. Sajidin, right? Eyes. AMR Bove, that is People's Exhibit 154 in evidence, if we could bring that up. This is that source agreement, correct? Yes, it is. I think you said on Tuesday that this is a standard AMI document, am I right? Eyes. A document that AMI used in connection with standard operating procedures? Eyes. Yesterday, you said that AMI had entered into hundreds of thousands of source agreements like this, correct? Over the years, yes. Over decades, right? Yes. Before. Even before you were leading AMI, right? Mr. Bove, now, if you can please zoom in on the payment line. So, I think you testified on Tuesday that the standard time period for one of these agreements was 90 or 120 days. Eyes. And, here, somebody there's a blank in a template, right? You see where it says, exclusivity period? Yes, and somebody filled in 3 months or 90 days. That's correct. Do you see the payment line where it says, payable upon publication as set forth below? Yes. And saw there no money due to Mr. Sajidin when this agreement was signed, correct? That's correct. And you believe that if this story was true, it was worth a lot of money, right? Eyes. What I'm asking about now is what was in your mind in 2015 as this was happening. Okay? I understand. So, when it was reported to you that somebody was saying the things that Mr. Sajidin was saying, you believed that if those were true, it could be the biggest National Enquirer article ever? That is correct. And I think you testified about the Enquirer's coverage of Elvis Presley's death, right? Eyes. I think, if I'm recollecting correctly, there were about 6.5 million sales associated with the National Enquirer's coverage of that death. That is correct. And you thought that if this story was true, Mr. Sajidin's claim was true, that it could sell 10 million National Enquirers, right? Yeah, I did. So, if this story was true, you were going to run it, correct? Yes, because you had a fiduciary obligation to do that. Right? That is correct. It would have made business sense, to put it mildly, to run such an article if it was true, correct? Eyes. And as soon as you heard the story about Mr. Sajidin, you knew that to be the case, right? Yeah, I did. It took AMI a little bit of time to verify or try to verify the story, right? Eyes. And I think you testified that it wasn't really completed. You didn't have a firm sense of it until late December 2015? That's correct. So, several weeks, maybe a month, at least, after this agreement was signed, right? Eyes. And at some point in the time between when this agreement was signed and when the vetting process was completed, Mr. Sajidin started to make threats, correct? Eyes. He was threatening to go someplace else, right? That correct, and that is why you decided to pay Mr. Sajidin $30,000, correct? Yes, because you could not have him taking his story to another publication if it was true, right? That's correct. It would be too great a loss to AMI to lose control of such a story, if true. Right? Yes, Amar Verbove, Mr. Bernick, could you please publish People's 155? This is also in evidence. Right? So, this is the amendment to that source agreement, yes, itis. And this one is dated December 17th, 2015. AIs. Do you see that at the bottom? And this agreement was entered into after Mr. Sajidin started to make those threats, correct? Ayes. And in exchange for $30,000, Mr. Sajidin agreed to the exclusivity period in perpetuity, right? Ayes. Forever? This is where you bought the rights of the story AI did. And that is because it was still possible, in your mind, when this agreement was signed, that the story was true? That's correct. And you could not walk away from that possibility, however small it might be, right? Walking away from Mr. Sajidin's story would not make yes or no business sense, right? It would not have been your standard operating procedure, correct? Okay. And Martha Bove, we can take that down. Thank you. I want to talk a little about Ms. McDougal. If that's yes, just to be clear, President Trump did not pay you any money related to Karen McDougal. Right? No. No. Okay? Okay. Nor did Cohen percent, correct? Correct. I want to focus on 2016, when there were negotiations relating to and involving Ms. McDougal. When you first learned about this story, you understood that Ms. McDougal did not want to publish it, correct? Yes, she did not want to, right? Ash did not want to. What she wanted to do was restart her career, correct, Eyes? And after you learned that, you thought there was opportunity for AMI to help her do that, right? Eyes. And that's because she had worked before on Men's Fitness magazine, right? Eyes. I think she was one of the first females that was the cover of that magazine, right? Eyes. In 99? That's right. Was that after you started? Right after I started. So, you and Ms. McDougal went back, in a way, right? I didn't know her. But, you knew that she had done work on that cover for AMI, right? Not until I was told in that June of 2016. So, is it fair to say that when you first started out at AMI, it took some time to get up to speed? Right? Well, first, that the Men's Fitness, that title was a weaker magazine, so we purchased it. The purchase was in 2002. One of those purchases that involved Mr. Schwarzenegger in 2002, 2003? Eyes. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sorry about that. Getting back to 2016, you understood that Ms. McDougal's main interest was not publishing the story, correct? Eyes. And you testified about a meeting that you had with one of your investors' offices in New Jersey, right? Eyes. You said that President Trump got through to you on the phone during that meeting? Was that at Chatham Asset Management? Eyes. Yes, and says, and what was the presentation that day? I was reading the quarterly results, biannual results. Somebody interrupts the meeting, that presentation, President Trump is on the phone, right? Mr. Steinglass objection. The court overruled. Didn't say President Trump. You knew you had an important yes, he said, Donald Trump is on the phone. When you got on the phone, you knew that it was President Trump. Right? Mr. Steinglass objection. The court sustained. You talked to President Trump that day in connection with the meeting, right? Mr. Steinglass objection. The court, what's your objection? Mr. Steinglass, he wasn't President Trump in June of 2016. The court sustained. Mr. Bove, if I could just have a moment, Judge. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same meeting. Okay? There was a meeting where you said you gave an investor's presentation to, right? Yes. During that meeting, you received a phone call, right? Eyes. Who was on the phone? Donald Trump. When was the meeting? June of 2016. And during that conversation, during that call, discussed Karen McDougal, right? Eyes. And you told President Trump that Ms. McDougal did not want to publish the story, correct? Mr. Steinglass objection. The court sustained. What do you remember about the phone call? Mr. Trump called MYMY office and either it was in New York or Florida. And since I was in Chatham, New Jersey, my assistant transferred the call to Chatham, and when the call came in, the assistant in the small office came over and asked to come out, that Donald Trump was on the phone. And when I spoke to Mr. Trump, he said that he wanted to know. Wash asked Mayhay said, I spoke to Michael. And I wanted to talk to you about Karen McDougal. So, he said, is it true that there's a Mexican group that's looking to buy the story for $8 million? And I said, no, I don't believe that's true. 2, he said that one to recollect it completely. Thank you.